Hi, I'm Gavin,
And I'm Dave.
and you're on the fringe.
Come along with us for a ride on a podcast where we talk about an area or a thing going on in the world that needs more attention, just like you do. Let's go.
On the fringe. Here we go.
Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to On the Fringe. This is Dave. I'm here with Gavin. And Gavin, you're looking at your phone. What are you looking at? What's going on in the world?
Well, you know what, Dave? Right now, I'm uh I'm looking at I'm looking at the news coming out of Africa and particularly the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and it's not good news, Dave.
What's
But
happening over there?
rebel groups killed a bunch of people, taken a whole bunch of territory. But Dave, I'm a little puzzled.
Mm-hmm.
What does this have to do with me?
Well, Congo's been a mess for a long time, and most of the world looks at Congo and goes, yeah, it's not important. But in the last 15 to 20 years, Congo has become one of the most important parts of the whole entire world due to having a large amount of rare earth minerals in the very eastern part of the country. And I was actually kind of playing around with ChatGPT earlier, and I asked ChatGPT, so how much would your performance decrease if no rare earth minerals or metals had been used in your development? And ChatGPT spit out that, quote, if no rare earth minerals or metals were used in the hardware that powers me, my performance would likely decrease significantly. Here's why. And then it gives five reasons. Processing power would decrease, memory and storage would drop, networking connectivity would be much slower, would be less energy efficient, and it would overall be impacted significantly, and ChatGPT would not be what it is. It would be like getting on getting on Chat Jeeves. If you guys remember Ask Jeeves way back in the day, and
Oh, back in
asking
the
it
day.
back in the day, back in the land of AOL 6.0, 7.0 dial up, where you're taking
Oh,
5 minutes to connect to something, and it's not going to give you what you want to have. So
hmm.
basically, these minerals are very, very important to a lot of the advancements in tech that we've had, and they're going to be very important to the advancements in tech that we will have in the next 5 to 10 years.
Now, can you just name some of these minerals for me? Because I'm a little fuzzy about rare earth. That could be a bunch of things.
Okay, so cobalt, coltan, beryllium, and tungsten are some of the main ones. And cobalt is one of the most important ones that we have, where it's actually going to start to replace tungsten and copper in the future. It's very reliable, it provides a much better power performance, and it's actually allowing the chips to process much faster than before.
So, to get back to the Congo for a second, we'll return to this. Uh, the Democratic Republic of the Congo got independence in 1960 from Belgium. It had originally been a personal colony of the Belgian king before being taken over by the Belgian parliament in the late 19th century. And if you look at it on a map, it's smack dab in the middle of the continent, just maybe south center. It's massive. It's the second largest country by area in Africa. And it's sort of, if you look at it, it's sort of like a blob, but there are two tentacles. There's one extending down to Lake Malawi, and there's one extending down to the Atlantic Ocean. And that tentacle going to the Atlantic. That's where the capital is. The capital of Kinshasa is sort of on the way to the Atlantic Ocean. The region we're talking about today, which is the region around the African Great Lakes. Now, Dave, can you tell the audience the difference between the African Great Lakes and the American Great Lakes?
I don't think they're as cold as the American Great Lakes, right?
Probably not.
Probably
Probably.
not. Probably don't get the snow that they get up in Minnesota and Wisconsin. That'd be my guess. I've never been over there, but I would imagine that it's probably a lot hotter, just because they are right on the equator, really close to it.
Now there are parts of I know for a fact there are parts of Rwanda that get a little chilly, but I don't think it's like Wisconsin.
Well, it's
Um,
like Minnesotans still sunbathing, right? It's going to be probably 60 degrees. They're going to walk outside and they're going to melt and turn into a puddle of, I don't know what you'd call it. Probably snow, but like mush. I don't know. Minnesotans, if you're listening to
it
this,
wouldn't
help
be
me out.
pretty.
What do you guys? It would not be pretty.
It would not be pretty. Let's just leave it there. So, the region we're talking about today, the Kivu region, is located off of the aptly named Lake Kivu in the eastern part of the Congo. This is the far east of the Congo. And this is right on the border with three countries, Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi. And today, we're mostly going to be talking about the relationship between Congo and Rwanda and their sort of struggle for control over mines, mostly focused on those rare earth minerals we just talked about, mostly cobalt and coltan. Um, and Goma, which is a city that has been much in the news lately for all the wrong reasons, and very unfortunately, since Goma was taken by the M23 militia group, which is allied with the Rwandan army, um, we think over 700 civilians have probably been killed. It's probably much more than that. It's a really bad situation. It hasn't been great for some time, but the situation has escalated very quickly in about the last week and a half, 2 weeks. Um, so Dave, you shared something with me right before we recorded this. Uh,
Hmm.
a picture of the border on Google Maps, which is fascinating to me for multiple reasons, but it's very illustrative. Can you just describe what's on that image of the Rwandan Congolese border?
I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but the Rwandan side, it looks like you have well-built houses. Looks like you have much more order. You have a bustling market. And on the Congolese side, there's no Google Street View, so you can't see anything. You can see all the way up to the checkpoint, and it looks like at the checkpoint there's a small gate, and you've got a little guard hut, and then there's no big wall that you would imagine between two countries like this, where they've had civil war and they've had a lot of problems between. I guess both neighbors don't really like each other, and you would
Yeah,
expect more. You would expect a lot more border security, but it's looks like it's pretty open and porous, which is to me kind of shocking.
but I
And
think
one side
it's
is obviously much poorer than the other.
yes. And the irony, of course, is that's where the minerals are coming from. Um, I think that speaks to the complexity of the relations in that part of the world. So after independence, now Rwanda and Burundi were also Belgian colonies. They also got independence in the 60s. For all three countries, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, post independence was not good. Colonization, I'm not saying colonization was good. That was really horrible for everyone. But post independence was not sunshine and roses. Um, there were major Cold War issues, particularly in the Congo, but also in the other two. And then in the 90s, you had the Rwandan genocide.
I was
And
gonna
that's, yeah,
jump in real
that's,
quick and just say
yeah,
that Congo isn't even called the Congo; it was called Zaire for much of the time, and that's a whole nother topic.
that's,
But the
we're
region
not
has
touching
changed.
that. We're not touching that. They changed the name for 40 years. They changed it back. No one calls it Zaire anymore. That was some Cold War shenanigans. They don't call themselves Zaire. That sometimes they'll call themselves Congo Kinshasa because you also have the Republic of the Congo. I'm not talking about that either. I'm just going to move ahead and say in the
Yeah.
90s, in 93, there was the Rwandan genocide. Uh, which killed about 800,000 people. Uh, in Rwanda, that spilled over. Uh, One of the rebel groups, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, seized power from the genocidaires, who mostly fled into what is now Eastern Congo. So there are not many of them left, but there are rebel groups in Eastern Congo, Hutu supremacist groups, and this is just very quickly one of the roots of the Rwandan genocide, or the root of the Rwandan genocide, was an ethnic conflict between the Hutu majority. The Hutus are the majority in Rwanda and Burundi, and the Tutsi minority, which was targeted during the genocide. Now, Tutsis and Hutus both live in the Congo as well. There are large communities living in the Congo as well. So, this is, again, all of these territories are intertwined in various ways. So,
I
the
was gonna
RPF, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
jump in. I was gonna jump in real quick and just correct me if I'm wrong on this. But before Africa and this part of Africa was colonized by Europeans, the Tutsis were largely in charge, correct? Even though they were a minority. And then once it was colonized, first by the Germans and then by the Belgians, the Hutus largely took power because there were more of them than Tutsis. Is that right?
Um, Partially correct. I mean, we're not going to get into the whole conversation about what
Right.
constitutes an ethnic group, but there are serious questions about whether it was a social class or an ethnic group. Again, everyone's speaking the same language. Everyone pretty much had the same belief systems. Everyone was kind of living in the same uh, political units. The There definitely seemed to be some dominance by Tutsi groups. This was actually supercharged by the colonizing powers because they viewed the Tutsis as people that they could administrate through. So
Mm.
actually, they boosted Tutsi power in both territories, um, quite happily, because from the European perspective, there were no costs to this exercise. If you empower the Tutsis, they'll run things and you won't get the blame. Um, so that strategy works until independence, and this is where Rwanda and Burundi diverge. In Burundi, the Tutsi minority pretty much holds power until the 90s. In Rwanda, uh, the Hutus take over in basically what was a smaller, less publicized genocide in the 50s and 60s, and they're in control until 1994. The Rwandan Patriotic Front officially is anti ethnic sectarianism, anti ethnic stratification. But the leader, who's basically been the leader of Rwanda since 1994, he's the current leader of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. Paul Kagame is a Tutsi. And he actually grew up in Uganda fighting with Tutsi rebel groups, working with the current Ugandan president, uh, to overthrow the government there. He gained that experience. He re-entered Rwanda in 1990, and he basically he took power in 1994. He didn't officially become president until 2000, but that's Paul Kagame, and he is a pretty intimidating character.
He's pretty tall as well. I mean, you look at the guy and he's kind of a, big, lanky-ish figure, but he does wield a very, very big stick. And this
No
guy is
joke.
determined and he is not going to give up anything. I mean, he's ambitious.
No, no, he's very ambitious. Pretty much the second he took power in 2000, he started talking about, we're going to get over this. Again, Rwanda is not a big country. Rwanda is not a big country. 800,000 people is an incredibly large amount of the population died. This is a just almost unimaginable thing that happened. Um, and yet in 2000, this guy's saying, we're going to be Singapore in Africa. We're going to be more advanced than everyone else. We're going to move faster than everyone else. We're going to have more power than the people around us. And already in 2000, he was kind of exercising that because the Rwandan army, even then, was involved in what was going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was in the middle of its second civil war. The first civil war, it's a nod to you, Dave, the first civil war got rid of Zaire. The government, the Zairean government, led by Mobutu Sese Seko, that was wiped out in the first Congolese civil war. The second civil war was largely because of the Rwandan, Burundian, and Ugandan governments backing rebel groups to overthrow the government in Kinshasa. Um, and they were successful in that, by the way. The father of the, not the current president in Congo, but his predecessor's father, Laurent Kabila, or I think it was Joseph Kabila. Joseph Kabila was essentially
Yeah, it was
installed.
Joseph. I think Laurent was the son, I believe.
Laurent was the
Jar
son. Laurent was the son who was totally useless, who like played video games for 10 years. And
Kim
you know,
Jong-un of
they're just
Central
stories of
Africa.
like we need to see the president, and it's like, oh, he's busy, he's playing GTA. Um, so Joseph Kabila was installed. He was assassinated pretty quickly after that. Congolese politics are not the most stable in the world. His son took over. His son didn't do very much. Most of the governance in the country is so Congo is a massive, massive country. It's got a very large population. It's got incredible resources. It's got one of the largest river basins in the world, massive amounts of jungle, and it is basically large parts of it are just not governed at all. It is very loosely governed. The central government is incredibly weak. I'll share this statistic. I know I shared it with you, Dave, already. In 2008, when they did a poll, the Congolese army, which is about 110, 120,000 people, 20,000 of the soldiers, and I use that in air quotes, 20,000 of the soldiers in the Congolese army were estimated to be over 60 years old. It's not particularly well governed when it's governed at all. The current prime minister, president, I have to, I
Hmm.
really should know that. I'm going to clarify that right now. The current president is Felix Tshisekedi, and his father was a major opposition politician. He uh, he took office in 2019, so he's been there for 5 years already. Um, he has not had much more luck than his predecessor, to be honest. Um, he has been trying to reassert. This is where we come back to the coltan mines and the cobalt mines.
Hmm.
He's trying to reassert Congolese sovereignty over mineral resources in the East, or he has been trying. And the issue is, again, most of the administering, and this is we're talking about, most of the administering of things in the Congo is not being done by the Congolese government. Who's actually doing the hard work, Dave?
It's mostly, I would say, NGOs, and you have some rebel groups as well that are pretty much setting up shop,
Come on,
and they're
dude.
keeping they're
Come
keeping
on,
stuff.
dude. Who do you think's doing a lot of the heavy lifting? They're
Is
headquartered
it Mr.
in New
Is
York.
it that UN? Those guys, those blue helmets?
Yeah, it's those guys. So there are about 18,000 UN peacekeepers currently in Congo. And I think it's the largest UN peacekeeping mission. It's certainly one of the longest running. Um, they do a lot. They do a lot in the Congo. Um, Certainly in some parts you can argue, I think very correctly, they're doing a lot more than the government. Um, and one of I'm sure you've seen this, Dave. One of the unfortunate things that has happened in the last 2 weeks is those peacekeepers have been in the firing line, and unfortunately, many of them have lost their lives. The last I saw, I think we're in the double digits. Uruguayan and
Hmm.
I want to say definitely South African peacekeepers have been killed. And this is a little unprecedented. This really hasn't happened before to this extent.
Yep.
But
And I was gonna say, I think as well that hasn't the UN evacuated most of their non-essential staff
yes.
from Goma and from the very eastern part of Congo, where they're getting everybody out that does not specifically need to be there.
Well, they're basically getting everyone out who isn't armed.
Hmm.
Um, and that the UN really doesn't do that unless it's absolutely the worst case scenario. Um, they do not withdraw, particularly again because they're running so many things. They're basically responsible for the healthcare system in large parts of Kivu province. They're just involved in a lot of basically what we would regard as civil society. They pulled everyone out. They can't guarantee anyone's safety. And there has been an escalation over the last couple of months, but this has kind of been a blitz the last week or so, and it looks like this is the prelude to a much larger move from Kigali, the capital of Rwanda.
Yeah, it looks like the M23 rebel group has crossed over and looks like they're going to start to restore some of the services in Goma. They're basically telling all of the local people over there to start cleaning up the city and,
Mm.
getting the dead bodies out and washing the blood off of the streets. And their leader, Cornel Nanga, who has come out as a de facto leader of the M23 group, which is largely Tutsi, and this guy is not a Tutsi, that they're going for Kinshasa. So you guys are going for the capital of the DRC. So these guys are very, very ambitious. They want to take control over a lot of the mines and a lot of the areas that are resource rich in the eastern part of the Congo so
Mm.
they can have more leverage over the Congolese government. And
Yeah,
then on
I
top
mean,
of that, these guys are backed by the Rwandan government next door,
yes,
Paul Kagame.
yes, yeah, and I think this is going to go in all kinds of directions, but Kagame, no one's retreating. They are not going to concede any territory. They're currently not negotiating with each other. Rwanda's resisted it, but Shikedi has as well in the Congo. In fact, the Congolese have really not taken this particularly well. There were some attacks on the embassies in Kinshasa, mostly Western embassies. They did attack the Rwandan embassy too, but definitely the average Congolese is not happy about this situation. And yeah, they are advancing. They're not on the road to Kinshasa, I would say, but they're advancing. And I think the concern, particularly from the UN, the concern would be this is the opening act of Paul Kagame going, we need a security buffer. We're done pretending we're not interested in this part of the world. We're just gonna say this is ours now. we're going to guarantee either some kind of independence or some kind of dependency territory. And I think part of the issue, again, and if you look at it historically, there are reasons to be concerned. Uh, if one part of the Congo is hived away from the rest, the center will probably not hold. And then you have, again, by area, the second largest state in Africa, right in the middle of everything, falling apart in real time. No one wants that.
Mhm. And then you have, I mean, you in a lot of these places, you've already brought this up. You don't have a lot of governance in these areas, so there's
No.
even less governance. And if the UN is the largest governing body, I guess in air quotes, governing body, and actually trying to set up some sort of civil society in here, then okay, you're going to have to work incredibly hard to build relationships with these guys or do very, very terrible things to get access to these minerals that are very, very important to keeping phones and computers and everything that we know and love and we've grown to know and love over the last 20 years operating and improving. And that's where the importance of this issue really comes into is that
Yeah.
if this falls apart and this collapses, what is going to happen to those supply chains? What is going to happen to the future of AI development and to, it could be
The
US
present.
energy policy
Yeah.
and, the worldwide energy policy because of a lack of access to these minerals that are critical that we've basically become dependent on over the last 10 or 15 years.
And it's worth noting that the issue of sourcing these minerals is already a problem. People talk about blood cobalt, blood phones, even. People know this is an issue, but part of the problem is Rwanda has more or less monopolized a lot of these mines. So even though you'll have a cobalt mine or a coltan mine or a tantalum mine that'll be located in the DRC, none of it can leave without Rwandan cooperation. So ultimately, they're the ones selling it on the international market.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just going to become more formalized, I would imagine, if this territorial encroachment is formalized.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I think, I mean, I look at this and go, okay, Paul Kagame is not going to directly get involved, but he's going to use rebel groups like M23 to go in and take over parts of the eastern part of the DRC, like Katanga, so he can
Yeah.
get more access and get control over the supply chains, because the Rwandans know that the Chinese have dumped so much money into sub-Saharan Africa in the
Mm.
last 10 years as part of their BRI, and the Chinese are really going after these minerals. They want access to these because they need them to develop their country, and they're already importing about 90% of the cobalt mined in the DRC to make batteries and other electronics. So if you have control of these minerals, then you essentially have control of a lot of the world's future technological growth, and it all goes through you. And that gives you a huge card in terms of bargaining for virtually anything that you want, whether it's military goods or aid packages or respect or whatever you're looking for.
And Paul Kagame is more aware of this than anyone on the planet. He is canny, he is tuned in, and he is ruthless. He is absolutely ruthless. And, the scenario you just outlined, Rwanda, again, you look at it on a map, Rwanda compared to Congo is nothing. Rwanda is so small in comparison to Congo. You would think, well, these people aren't going to be able to hold any amount of territory, let alone Katanga, which is like half a continent away. He might be thinking of that. Now, whether he gets that far or whether he's actually planned to get that far, I don't know. But I'm sure it's crossed his mind. And depending on how the next couple of weeks go and how far these rebels advance, he's either going to consolidate what they've taken or make the decision. I'm sorry, I'll rephrase that. He's either going to make the decision that they need to consolidate what they've taken, or the expansion will continue. And again, Rwanda is a small country. It has more people than resources. It is developed to a higher degree than some of its neighbors, but it's by no means a rich country. It's still dependent on aid to a great degree. It needs leverage. And with this, with the cobalt, the coltan, that'll be leverage for a long time over a lot of people.
Hmm. Definitely will. It definitely will. Interesting food
Anyways,
for thought, Gavin.
yeah. Anyways, on that cheery note, uh, big thanks to all of our subscribers. Like, comment. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. We always appreciate expanding the On the Fringe community. And you all stay safe and you have a good one.